Cheryl Richardson, and it's 6 o'clock Eastern, ready for this week's Facebook Live coaching session. So I'm here to, as I always am, each week to support you. I've been coaching people for a long time, and my work covers a wide variety of areas: health, business, relationships. As a coach, as a professional coach over the years, I've worked with a lot of people in a variety of ways to help them improve the quality of their lives, getting their priorities straight, getting the kind of emotional support they need, creating action plans for goals and dreams and things like that. So I'm here every week to support you, to answer your questions. And hi, Helena and Teresa, welcome. Glad you're here. And I'm just looking over here at my computer as well, because I know that some of you posted some questions before we started. Hello, Canberra, Australia, and Mexico City. Hola, hola. And North Carolina, welcome. And St. Pete, hi, Susan and Jamie from Cape Cod. So today, it's funny, just a little while ago, we had a big thunder shower here, and I thought, oh, are we going to have another week where I have rainbows in front of me? Remember a couple of weeks ago, we had a big rainbow right in front of the camera. I turned it around, and then the following week we had a rainbow as well. And I don't know, it's just been one of those summers. Jamal, hi, welcome from Brooklyn. I miss you, and it's so lovely to see you here. Thank you for being here, Emma and Joanne and Lori and Megan. I so appreciate that you all joined me for this, and it's a wonderful way to be in touch with people all over the world and to offer my support and whatever I can bring to the table here to help you out. I thought what I would do is I wanted to just start by talking a little bit about the distinction between coaching and therapy. And the reason I wanted to do that is because a lot of times when I do Facebook Lives, hi Holly, welcome, it's nice to see you, and Louise and Natalie and James, I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad you could make it, yes, and Christine. A lot of times when I do Facebook Live coaching, just like with regular coaching with audiences in a workshop or in a retreat or something like that, there's always stuff that comes up for people that's therapy related, and there's stuff that comes up that's coaching related. And I just wanted to start right out of the gate tonight talking about, or today, wherever you are, talking about the difference between the two. And in the hopes of helping you to get the support that you need depending on what's going on, and also to make the distinction so that the work that we're doing here in terms of the Facebook Live coaching is really about coaching and it's not about therapy. So, and let me make a distinction about a few different coaching, therapy, consulting, and mentoring. Let's do that, shall we? So consulting, which is often done in a business arena, business consulting, corporate consulting, is really when you bring your expertise and information to help people solve problems, to help them achieve goals, to provide information that's going to help address an issue that somebody might be having or desires that someone might have in their small business or their large business. In corporate coaching, it can be helping people to deal with change, team development. There's so many different aspects of corporate consulting and small business consulting, or consulting, in any kind of industry or in any area where you have information that's going to help people to move forward and information that is going to help people to solve problems. That's consulting. The emphasis is often on the what. What do you want to accomplish? What needs to happen in order to make that work? Consulting. Mentoring is often sharing your expertise and your experience in a particular area, a particular industry, kind of a particular vertical where, if I wanted to mentor somebody as a public speaker, I would take my experience, the years of experience that I have, and I could mentor them. And that would be a combination of, here's what you need to do if you want to become a successful public speaker, and here's who you need to be in order to make that happen. So a mentor is somebody who, if I wanted to mentor somebody in media and I wanted to talk about how to deal with television or radio or social media, I would be sharing my expertise, my experience, both personally and professionally. Professionally, here's what you need to do. Here's the steps you want to take. Here's the information, the education, the experience you need to amass, to gather. And then also, here's how you need to grow. Here's here's the best way for you to behave and to be in order to be successful in that arena. So that's mentoring. It's kind of in a particular specific area, generally speaking, but in a specific area, you're passing along information and experience and expertise. So it's consulting and mentoring. Therapy is really more emotionally based. It's when people are struggling with things like depression, feeling stuck, chronically stuck, and not able to move forward after getting some coaching, is sometimes an indication that there may be a therapy issue. So therapy, generally speaking, is about what's preventing you in the present day that might be related to your past. What's preventing you from moving forward related to your past, and how do we go back and deal with that past in a way that gets you unstuck or that helps you to move forward. Obviously, therapy can be about diagnosing mental illness, supporting people with issues like depression, anxiety, trauma, chronic states of regression. In other words, in a work environment, you're always being triggered by your boss, or you're being triggered by coworkers, and there's a lot of emotion that's come up, overwhelming emotions, flooded emotions. These are all therapy issues. Certainly, if somebody's suicidal, if somebody is, panicking, and yes, Laura says therapy rocks. As many of you know who have been with me, I'm a huge, huge advocate for therapy. I have been the grateful beneficiary of really good therapy over the years, all the way back to when I was 19 years old and hired my first therapist. And I always say that I wouldn't be where I am today had I not had good therapy and had I not continued. I have somebody I work with now. I'm always, I'm so committed to growing and evolving and healing and being the best person I can be. And I mean, I happen to believe that that's why we're here, that, life brings us challenges, and it's how am I going to use this challenge to become more awake, more conscious, more evolved, more a better human being, a better contributor to society. So therapy is really about dealing with the emotional issues. Not that emotional issues don't come up in coaching, but if they're chronic or overwhelming or related to mental illness in some way, then they're really a therapy issue, not a coaching issue. And then there's coaching. And generally speaking, coaching is about present day, where you are, what it is you want to accomplish, where you want to go, what your goals are, your dreams, your desires. How do we make a plan to help you get there? And then supporting you in, identifying the goals, identifying the specific objectives, identifying the measurable results you want to accomplish, creating a plan of action, and supporting you as you take those steps. You take the steps, you take the actions, you get stuck. We sort of strategize about, okay, where'd you get stuck? What's going on? How are we going to overcome that? How are we going to overcome that obstacle so that you can keep moving forward? A big benefit of coaching is the accountability. I've certainly experienced that myself. I'm a really good coachee. When I'm working with the coach and I make a promise that I'm going to do something, I know I've now got to deliver. So it helps to keep me motivated. It's a great way to overcome procrastination and to move forward with goals. So those are the distinctions. So consulting, mentoring, coaching, and therapy. Now, is there overlap? Yes. For example, I might be working with a client as a coach who loses a loved one and is suddenly really thrown into depression and is really struggling with a lot of grief. And so as a coach, if I notice, I'm familiar with the signs of depression, if I notice that there is, if I notice that might be an issue, I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to often refer the client to a therapist. When I do refer the client to a therapist, the therapist always gets first position in terms of working with the client. So I allow I want the therapist to lead, and I'm going to support the client in following through with whatever the therapist is talking about, suggesting. Sometimes it means the coaching is going to end or be put on hold while the client does personal work. In my own life, there are times where I've had to do some deep healing work, and action wasn't the order of the day. Doing the healing work was more important. And there were many times where that was true for me, and it helped move me forward by doing that healing work. So the therapist is always the one in charge. I'm also a big fan of deep healing work that involves the body, not just the head. So I think talk therapy is incredibly helpful. There's different kinds of therapy, and it really depends on what's going on for you. And it depends on who you're working with. Whatever the issues might be will sort of determine the kind of therapy that you'll want to engage in. In my lifetime, I've done Jungian therapy, which is very image-based, and where I've spent a year analyzing my dreams and gaining access to unconscious material through my dreams. I found it fascinating and incredibly helpful. Marion Woodman, who's written several books, she studied with Jung directly, was an early mentor of mine, and I'm a huge fan of that work. I've done mind-body therapy in the past when I had some physical issues, physical health issues, and I really wanted to get to the root of the emotional causes of my health issues. I worked specifically with somebody who dealt with the mind and the body. Somatic therapy, Patricia, yes, it's a really powerful form of therapy. All of the trauma we experience, little baby traumas and big traumas, lives in the body. The body provides us with great wisdom and important information when we tend to it, when we pay attention to it, when we use it to work, when we work with it in therapy. So I've done that kind of somatic therapy before and found it incredibly helpful. Gestalt therapy, I've done workshops where, where you're put in positions with other people. You're recreating scenarios from your life where you felt stuck and allowed yourself to revisit those experiences in a new way and to move through the stuckness, or to identify the pain and to release the pain of those experiences. I remember one time I did a 6-week course called Model Mugging, which was about it was a self-defense course, but it was really about empowering women in particular to take care of themselves. To be able to protect themselves. I was doing a lot of traveling. Sometimes I was traveling alone, and I really wanted to, and in honor of a family member who had experienced trauma, I made a decision to take back my power by doing this self-defense course. Now, I thought it was a self-defense course. It turned out to be a powerful, powerful form of trauma therapy, where I was in a course with women who had been raped, and where the rapes were recreated so these women could fight their way out of situations where they had felt victimized, were victimized. So that was an incredible 6-week period of my life where I learned a lot about myself. And so there's a lot of different things I've done. And the reason I have is because I sort of came out of the womb believing that our purpose here on the planet is to grow and evolve the soul, right? The soul wants to experience all aspects of life, wants to heal, wants to grow. The soul isn't here to accomplish or achieve. It's the experience of accomplishing, achieving, healing. So anything that happens that's really tough, I take on as what do I want to call it? The challenges that I'm faced with, the difficulties in my life, I for a long time, one of the things I really love about myself is my commitment to my own growth and my willingness to take on any difficult situation, allow myself to have my feelings about it, to process those feelings for as long as it takes, and then to use that to become a more conscious and evolved person. So I think it's very important to be working, if you're going to do therapy, that you work with somebody that you love and feel inspired by and supported and loved by and cared for. You know, I always say, I talk about interviewing therapists. I think it's really important, making sure that they've worked with people like you on issues that you want to work on, that they have a track record of success that they can talk to you about. And you want to always leave your initial meetings with potential therapists thinking, God, I'm so excited to work with this person. Even though it's going to be hard sometimes, you want to feel like you've got a real partner. So that therapy piece isn't coaching. It's really important to make the distinction, because when I'm working with somebody and it's clear that there's a lot of emotional stuff going on, I want to move them into therapy as quickly as possible. That's the responsible thing to do. It's the right thing to do as a professional coach, and it's what's going to help the clients to move forward in their lives. I always joke around. I say I've sent so many men to therapy because back when I had a private practice, about 65% of my practice I worked with men, and I always had a great group of therapists to refer to, people that were really smart and wonderful, and sent a lot of women to therapy too, but probably a lot more men than most people because I'm such a huge advocate of it. So anyway, I just want to make that distinction, because in our live Facebook coaching sessions here, this is really your chance to talk about strategies and practical advice for handling some of life's problems, but also moving yourself forward with your business, moving forward with the goals that you want to set for yourself, moving forward with your career, leaving your job, becoming self-employed, handling difficult relationships, getting the language for that. You know, these sorts of things. So anyway, and I'm going to focus my questions, the choices of my questions, I'm going to focus on picking questions that are really coaching related, not therapy related. So I hope that's helpful. And I just felt like it was an important thing to start off with. And now now's the time you can post your questions. I'm going to look here. Hold on while I get my glasses. Let me look and see. I'm going to go back and look at some of the questions that we have here. So Gina asks, if you have nothing to bring to the table financially, but you say yes to marriage, should you still have a say in where and how you live? It's not that I'm not independent. She's independent. She just doesn't have equity or savings. So Gina, yeah, you know, here's the thing, Gina. If I were getting married, I would absolutely want to be marrying somebody who really cared about me being happy about where we live, how we live. And I think that it's probably a really good idea to talk about all of this before you get married. Just because you're not bringing any savings to the relationship, I'm assuming your fiance knows this. So, you know, what can you bring? You know, when Michael and I got married, which was more than 20 years ago, he had just built his little bachelor pad. I screwed up his bachelor pad, but he had just built a house, and all of his savings had gone into a house. He didn't even have a lot of furniture. And when I met him, I didn't have a house. I had a small apartment, but I had saved a good amount of money. And we talked about finances beforehand, before I moved in and we decided to get married. And we made an agreement that because he was providing the house, I was going to pay for some of the furniture that we would use to furnish the place together. And we would slowly and systematically add furniture to the house so that we had some kind of a cushion of savings. So I think it's really important, Gina, that you talk about it ahead of time. It makes me, so I don't know whether you feel somehow less than because you're not bringing more to the table financially, or whether your fiance has brought that up, but this should absolutely be addressed before you get married. And as I said, I wouldn't be marrying, if somebody, you know, if my fiance said to me, well, you know, I'm bringing money to the table and you're not, so I want us to live where I want to live, that would be a big flag. That would be a very big flag, because where you live is really important. And you want to be married to somebody who Yeah, okay, no, so he lives with clutter. Well, there you go. Now we go to sort of a deeper conversation, because if in fact he lives with a lot of clutter, you know, the environment in which we live has a profound impact on our emotional, physical, and spiritual health. And if you know, like, I could not live in a place that was filled with clutter. I would be a horrible roommate. I'd be miserable. I'd be bitchy. I just wouldn't be a good partner. So I think that's the conversation you want to be having. And you want to be talking to him about what he's going to do about that clutter, or the kind of environment that you feel brings out the best of you. And I'd want to see some proof that he was willing to address his clutter before I'd ever move in the place. I mean, that's just me, Gina, but please don't underestimate. You know, in my book, The Art of Extreme Self-Care, there's a chapter about nurturing space and the importance of space, the importance of the aesthetics of the space in which we live. I'm telling you, back when I was coaching business owners, Gina, I would, and they wanted to grow their business. The first place I started was with the office, how cleaned up it was, how much clutter they had in their office. So yeah, so you're saying it makes you anxious and sad? That's not going to change just because you're married. It's actually going to make it worse. So Gina, that needs to be addressed beforehand. And I'd really encourage you to do that. By the way, my sister Kerri, who's a really great coach, has a book coming out on August 15th, so next month, and it's called What Your Clutter is Trying to Tell You. So I will, I'll make a little note here, because for those of you that are new joining me, after this live session, I go back and edit the post, and I'll include the resources that I talk about here. So I'll include Kerri's book, What Your Clutter is Trying to Tell You. You might want to buy him that book, Gina, give it to him or her, and see how they respond to it. Okay, so let's see. What other questions do we have here? Okay. Okay, so Monica says, in the next week, I'm moving to a new city and starting a new job. What are some good strategies for remaining sane and healthy during big changes? Good question, Monica. Let me take a sip of water. So first of all, rule number one, put as much space around the move in the beginning of the job as you can. So what I mean by that is, watch your schedule between now, you know, chances are your schedule might tend to get a little social, maybe because you're leaving the place where you've lived. Make sure that you keep your schedule really, really thin, light, so that you've got spaciousness around the move. I think that that's really important. I think that certainly any preparation, I'm assuming you've done some preparation in terms of where you're moving to, and any kind of asking 2 or 3 people who love you and care about you to support you, emotionally support you, to just maybe be available to support you would be great, so that you could pick up the phone and call somebody, or even like text with somebody at the airport if you're feeling a little nervous. Here's the most important thing I want you to know, Monica, particularly around starting the new job, and this is great information for everybody. There's it's important to remember that whenever we start something new, moving to a new city, starting a new job, especially taking on a new project, taking on more work, more responsibility at work, starting a business, whenever we start something new, we are consciously incompetent. In other words, we are so conscious of what we don't know, and it tends to make us feel anxious and uncomfortable, especially if you're a high achiever or you have a tendency towards perfectionism. And I'm trying to remember I can't remember the name of the people who did this study. It's in a blog post that I wrote, not study, but this research on the 4 stages that I'm going to talk about. So the first stage is being consciously incompetent. Like, you walk into a new job and you don't know anything. You don't know people, just like you go into a new city. You don't know people. You don't know where the supermarket is. You don't know where to get gas, all of this sort of stuff. And feeling consciously incompetent can make you feel anxious. Knowing about conscious about being consciously incompetent when you start something new reduces that anxiety dramatically. So Monica, remember, when you start the new job, there's this part of you that's going to see everything you don't know and may have a tendency to start feeling anxious or less than. Just, this is the time you put your hand on your heart and you say, you know what, sweetheart, little Monica, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. This is a whole new city. This is a whole new job. We don't know anything yet, but we're going to learn. I've got your back. You can relax. We're going to get through this. So the first stage is being consciously incompetent. You're conscious of what you don't know. Then, as you start to gain momentum and you start to find the supermarket and the gas station and you find a yoga class or you make new friends in your job, you start to get mentored, you start learning new information, you start getting a handle on what it is you're doing, and before you know it, you think, yeah, I got this. Now you're consciously competent. You suddenly are aware that, you know what, okay, I'm getting this. I'm going to talk about the 3 stages. Consciously competent. You suddenly realize, I've got this, okay, or you know what, I'm going to be able to get this. I'm getting enough of it that I start to feel a little more comfortable because I'm conscious of the fact that I'm learning stuff, I'm finding my way around, and I'm feeling better. Less anxiety. Eventually, you become unconsciously competent. Like when we drive a car, we don't think about driving the car, we just drive it. We are unconsciously competent. Most of us, are anxious to get to that stage. That's when we feel good. Okay, I got my job. I know what I'm doing. I know, I'm driving to work. The car knows how to get there. I'm not even thinking about where to go. I don't have to think about stuff like that. It just takes a lot less energy. But understanding this, Monica, understanding the stages, being consciously incompetent, becoming consciously competent as you learn, and then becoming unconsciously competent, understanding those stages are going to help you. Keep reminding yourself, oh, this is that unconsciously incompetent stage. Oh, no wonder I'm feeling a little nervous because, I've got to find, excuse me, I'm hoping that I can get to work okay, that I'll be able to navigate the office or navigate the people. So that to me is like one of the most important things to know. Stay connected to the people in the old city. Allow them to carry you through as you begin this new place, this new way of being, this new job, this new city. And keep telling yourself, Monica, this is an exciting adventure. I am on an exciting adventure and I'm loving every minute of it. Fake it till you make it. Remember, the thoughts we think consistently fire neurons that create neural networks, grooves in the record of our mind that then become the directions that we live by. So even if you sort of fake it till you make it, Monica, and you keep saying to yourself, I'm on an exciting adventure. I don't know what's around the corner, but it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Give yourself permission to have your feelings, to feel sad or anxious or whatever. Talk to the part of you that might be feeling anxious. I always put my hand over my heart. I remember one time, I don't think I ever told this story on a Facebook Live. Maybe I did, who knows. But I remember one time years ago, like 20 years, at least 20 years ago, when I was asked to give a speech in London. And my husband, Michael, couldn't come with me. He was working and he couldn't get the time off. And so I was going over to give a keynote at a big corporate conference and I had never been there before. And I was really nervous, Monica. I was like consciously incompetent because, I just thought, how do you get through customs? Like it just was a completely new experience to me. I remember at one point when I was saying to Michael, I'm really nervous. I've never been to Europe and oh my gosh, is this going to be okay? And he's like, honey, it's not like they don't speak your language. Like you could just ask people. I remember we laughed about that. But the whole way, Monica, I still remember when I was in the airport getting ready to board my flight by myself. I felt like Marlo Thomas or, like that girl, like going to the big city. And I remember I just had my hand over my heart and I kept saying, sweetheart, we're in this together. We're going to be okay. I got it. If we get lost, I promise I'll ask somebody, we'll be okay. So this is going to be an exciting adventure. And it was an awesome adventure, Monica. I mean, I'm really blessed to have had some amazing, exciting adventures because of that attitude. So I hope that's helpful. I'm excited for you. I hope you'll, when you get to the new city, you'll join us on a Facebook Live and let us know how you're doing and what it's like. Just remember, be really loving and gentle with yourself. Very, very important. All right. And good question. It's a good coaching example. Let's see. What else do we have here? I'm just going back a little bit. Hi from Japan, 7:16 in the morning. Thank you for being here. I can't read your name because it's in Japanese, but I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Isolina, I just got a diagnosis from a fibroma in my uterus. I think you might mean fibroid. What kind of therapy could you recommend me to heal this part? All right, so I'm not a doctor, but I happen to have information in this area. This is the kind of stuff that comes up when you're coaching. And if you can provide resources to people, that's great. I would check out Chris Northrup, Dr. Christiane Northrup's book, Women's Body, Women's Wisdom. Let me just write that down. Women's Body, Women's Wisdom. She talks about fibroids, and in that book, you can also go to her website. I believe it's Dr. Northrup, drnorthrup.com. I'll put her website as well. And if you use the search button for fibroids, because I think that's what you're talking about, she's got a lot of great information. Fibroids are not uncommon. I think something like 60% of women often get them. Chris not only deals with, physically what you want to do in order to help heal fibroids, but also some of the emotional causes you want to look at. So Isolina, I think that would be really helpful for you as well. All right, let's go to, let's see. Okay. Yeah, I love Dr. Northrup too. Love, love, love her. Okay. So I'm just trying to read your questions. Krasimira, would you please put me in your big prayer book? I need some help with finding a job. Yeah, happy to do that. Remember, for those of you that haven't seen me before, I've got this great prayer book right here. Red prayer book. Read in honor of my friend Megan Watterson, who is a wonderful gal, wonderful woman. She wrote a book called Reveal. That's a fantastic book. And I am going to put you right in here, my darling. And I'm saying, gets a great new job. How's that? Yes, let's do that, shall we? All right, you're in there, girl. Hi, Paul from Ireland. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to find your questions. So April, here's a good question. I started today's Facebook Live talking about the difference between coaching and therapy. And April says, what would be the best way to get out of a depression, low energy funk? Seems like it's been years and years with the lack of motivation, emotional support with family, no drive, no desire. Now it's turning into frustration and resentment. So this is a good example of, as a coach, saying to a client, April, this is a therapy issue, and if it's been going on for years, it's time for you to reach out and get support. Really important, sweetheart. Don't suffer like this. You're meant to live a really alive, thriving life. And the problem with depression is our thinking isn't the most helpful kind of thinking. So we need the thinking of others, and you especially want the thinking of professionals who are experienced in dealing with depression. So you want to find a good psychologist, psychotherapist, psychopharmacologist. You want to get a full evaluation to see if in fact, and I would bet, just based on what you're telling me, if you and I were on the phone together now and you were interviewing me as a coach, I would say to you, sweetheart, this is not a coaching issue. This is a therapy issue. And it's really important for you to find a good therapist who can do a full evaluation, find out what's going on. Yes, you can talk about, the lack of motivation and a lack of emotional support from family. All of that stuff are therapy issues when it's linked to depression in this way. So I don't know if you're in the States, but I often talk about Psychology Today's Find a Therapist website. If you go to psychologytoday.com, you can see the Find a Therapist button. And they provide really great resources for therapists. And you really need to, and if you want to also get a good recommendation, I would go to your doctor. If you have a doctor that you like, I would go to your doctor and I would ask your doctor for a recommendation to a therapist who can do an evaluation of depression, a depression evaluation so that you can get the right care, so that you can move on with your life. This isn't something to be talked about in a coaching situation, or it's not going to be healed. If it's been going on that long, it's not going to be fixed by supportive family. It's going to be treated by professionals who know exactly what they're doing in that regard. So April, that's really important, and I hope you get the help that you need. I really do. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Sherry Ann says, I just cleared clutter in my workspace and what a difference it makes. You can think more clearly, you're more productive, and that's right. That our environments are really, really important. They have a very powerful impact. Okay, so Claudia says, I just quit my job of 9 years and want to switch careers. I've been offered a job similar to the one I had. Any advice? Well, Claudia, I'm assuming that the question means I don't really want to go back to what I was doing before, but should I? Well, the answer to that is directly related to the state of your financial health. So if you have, I don't know if you've saved money. These days, first of all, I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you have savings. If you've got a good amount of savings, if you're planning for retirement, if you've set yourself up where you were able to leave your job and take some time to explore your next career path, if you've set yourself up financially, that's great. If you haven't, then you can think of taking the job that you were offered doing the same thing as a transition position. Maybe it's going to be less stress. Maybe you're going to have a chance to make new friends and to be in a new environment, a fresh new environment. But see it as a transition position, which means you'll use that to pay the bills, to bring in a consistent source of income while you engage in a very deliberate and specific treasure hunt to determine what's next for you. I have an audio program that Hay House put out called Finding Your Passion. I would recommend that you check that out. I'm going to Finding Your Passion. I'll put that on the list here. It's a program that really talks about what passion is, the passion path of development, how we uncover the things we feel passionate about, and then how to make a plan to begin to practically engage in activities and work related to that passion so that you're able to earn a living. So that might be a great program for you, but you've got to make sure you have a consistent source of income coming in, because otherwise, I want you all to really get this. It's nearly impossible to find what you're passionate about and to pursue it when you're struggling financially, because you can't make clear decisions, and it's harder to make decisions that really honor the soul when you've got to pay the bills and you're worried all the time. Soulful decisions aren't made from fear and anxiety, and a lack of financial resources causes fear and anxiety. So we want to handle that part first. So really important that you make sure that you're taken care of financially as well. Okay, let's see. River says, I work with suffering people all day, listening to their problems, talking them through it. I do meditate daily and focus on self-care, but this is every day, and sometimes their issues get to me. What's an effective way to prepare for this and deal with it every day? Well, River, I wouldn't go to the what's an effective way to deal with it first. I'd want to know how long have you been dealing with it, what the state of your health has been like, emotional and physical health, and whether or not it's time for change. It is very, very difficult. I find that it's a certain kind of person. I find two things. It's a certain kind of person who can listen to people's suffering and not take it on, and they're few and far between. And oftentimes, that kind of work needs to be time limited. So in other words, people I know that have worked in, let's say, social work, dealing in trauma situations, are really good at it, but they burn out. And I always like to support people in moving on to something new before they reach burnout. I think that that's really important. So I just would really encourage you, River, to really think about whether or not it might be time for a break, because I don't think it's good self-care to be listening to suffering day in and day out. Some people can do it, but the fact that you're asking me about it, meditating is great and focusing on self-care is great. But when you say, but this is every day, and sometimes their issues get to me, what that tells me is it might be time for you to think about, at the very least, taking a break. If not, using the incredible skills you have and obviously the deep empathy that you have in a different way. For example, you know, when the coaching profession became quite popular back in the mid-90s, when it was first launched, there was a lot of upheaval from the therapy community because people were, you know, really afraid that coaches were going to be doing therapy when they shouldn't. A legitimate concern. I was concerned about that as well. And as a leader in the field, really worked hard to educate people about the difference, and still do. That said, as time went on and the profession got really established, there were many, thousands of therapists who shifted from doing therapy to coaching for that very reason, River, that they just felt like they couldn't, they just didn't want to be focused on problems. Now, if the other thing that happened was a lot of therapists started hiring coaches to support them in building practices that were more, that not only allowed the therapist to thrive, but allowed the clients to thrive as well. So you sometimes can be coached as a therapist, for example, to build a practice that really supports your well-being. And River, that, you know, without knowing specifically what you're doing, it's hard for me to address that. But for example, if I were coaching a therapist, I'd help them to identify their ideal clients and begin to slowly refer out the clients who didn't fit the ideal profile and build a practice of ideal clients. That happens over time and very carefully and lovingly with clients. But a lot of therapists decided to get into the profession of coaching because it gave them a chance to work with people in a more action-oriented way. Okay, here's what the problem is. Here's what needs to happen. Let's create a plan of action and I'll support you. A lot of therapists used my first book, Take Time for Your Life. They used Stand Up for Your Life, which is a lot about values and developing confidence and self-esteem. A lot of therapists actually used those books with their clients, like as homework. Here's your assignment, read the next chapter, let's talk about it, let's do the exercises in the book and talk about what's working and what isn't. I don't know if you have that option even, River, to sort of direct more of what you're doing. If there's a way in which you can change how you work with people so that there's less conversation about suffering and more conversation about moving forward and making changes. But again, without knowing the specifics of your work, it's hard to say. But taking good care of yourself, if it's a situation where you're always dealing, let's say, with other people's trauma, you're probably going to need a break, sweetheart. I don't know how an empathetic, loving human being, and obviously you are if you're doing this kind of work, I don't know how somebody can subject themselves to that over and over and over again without being affected in some kind of a way. Okay. Let's see. Emma says, I've been single for 15 years and can't get out of the loneliness. I have friends, but I just never go to the romance area. I feel like everybody else is more pretty and more fun and more normal, and I feel relaxed when I'm alone. Well, it's wonderful that you are happy. It sounds like you are happy with your own company, Emma, and I think that's great. When you say things like, I feel like everybody else is prettier, more fun, more normal, don't know what that means. I don't know many normal people, Emma. I would say this is probably a good example of a therapy issue as well. It might be worth it. I mean, is it that you don't want to be single anymore, that you'd like to meet somebody? If that's the case, then it might be really great for you to find a therapist who can work with you on some of the self-esteem issues, who can, who can support you in like looking at what is it that makes you maybe, I mean, listen, if I was single and I were going out dating, I would be incredibly anxious, Emma. I was when I was single. Ugh, I hated it. It was so hard. But you know what? I got into therapy and I got some help around that. And I ended up meeting a really great guy and getting married. I never even thought that that would happen. And now I'm actually a very happily married woman. So I think that it would be a good idea, Emma, for you to even think about really exploring this with a therapist. And I'd be looking for a therapist who has a track record in helping people to work through relationship issues so that they can find a partner and enjoy it. And who knows, Emma, you know what? You might find somebody that you really like and you might decide to just date and have fun and not enter into a committed formal relationship. Maybe you live in one house and he or she lives down the street and you have a great time and you have your own space and they have their own. I mean, there's all different things. There is no normal. Excuse me. I also, for some reason, Emma, want to recommend to you, especially when somebody talks about liking to be alone or feeling more relaxed when they're alone and then questioning how normal they are. I would encourage you to check out the Enneagram. I've spoken about it here before. The Enneagram is, it's a spiritual, I call it, it's like a spiritual personality profiling system, 9 types. It really captures the essence of who we are, where we came from. It provides a path of development. I use it a lot in my work. And if you go to EnneagramInstitute.com, again, I'm going to put that in the resource section. Emma, I would say to you, I would love for you to take the Enneagram test. It's like there's a long form, and I would take the long form. I think it costs like $9. Take the Enneagram test to determine your type. And then read about that type. It'll provide you with a report. I think it costs like $9 or $10 to take the test, and it's worth it. I would encourage you to do that, Emma. You know, just intuitively, that came to me very strongly right off the bat, and I trust my intuition as a coach. So I would take the Enneagram test. I'd be very curious to know what type you are. Maybe next week you can come back and let me know, because that would also help me to speak to the question that you're asking. And everybody, I mean, when I had learned about the Enneagram 30 years ago. Helen Palmer was one of the original teachers. And then I was reintroduced to the Enneagram again 10 years ago by Robert Holden, a friend and colleague in London. He introduced me to the work of Russ Hudson and Don Riso. And they have a wonderful book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. I'll include that as well. And I'm telling you, people, it changed my life. I was ready for it this time. I loved Don Riso and Russ Hudson's take on it. Russ has become a dear friend of mine. As a matter of fact, we've been talking for the last year about doing a program together. I might even do a retreat with him. I might get him to come up here and do a retreat with me, because the Enneagram, I found it to be one of the most powerful self-help, personal growth tools that I've used in a very, very long time. So I'm a big fan of it. And Emma, yeah, I'd love for you to check that out. It will tell you a lot about yourself, and it will also inform how you go about finding a relationship, if in fact that's what you want. When I took the Enneagram test, I introduced it to Michael, my husband. He took it, and it changed our relationship. I suddenly, as a matter of fact, I write about this in my next book. because it comes up in the journal that I wrote. And I talk about how it really changed our marriage when I began to understand what type he was and who he was and why he did certain things. And he began to understand my type. Ow, my knees are bothering me. I'm sitting on my legs. I'm not supposed to do that. Anyway, Emma, check that out. I think you'd really find the Enneagram. I think you'd find it interesting. I have a sense about that, so we'll see. All right, let's see. Thank you, Laura. I'm just looking through here. A couple more questions. Yeah, do you have an opinion on EFT or EMDR? Yeah, Megan, I love both of them. I've done both of them. EFT is the tapping therapy. I'm a huge fan of tapping therapies. I've used tapping for 20 years. I learned about it long before it was EFT. I love what Nick and Jessica and Alex Ortner do, the tappingsolution.com. I'll put that on the resources as well. And so EFT is a very powerful healing tool. I think you're going to see more and more about it. You're going to hear more and more about it. As a matter of fact, last week, Nick and Jessica were here at my home, and we videotaped an interview that's going to launch the 10-year anniversary of the World Tapping Summit next February. And I'm very excited about the research that's coming out about tapping and the way in which I use it all the time with people now. And it's really powerful. I'm even thinking about doing like a day-long tapping workshop where people can, come in person, and I can just do tapping sessions and really teach it and have people experience the incredible healing power of this modality. EMDR, using rapid eye movement, has been around for a long time. I think it's another very powerful way of reprogramming the brain, accessing old information, accessing old information that can be brought up and healed. So I'm a big fan of both of them, Megan. I just think it's really important that you work with practitioners that are, really skilled and experienced, and I think it can be incredibly powerful. All right, let's see. Time for a little bit more. Thanks, River. I'm glad that was helpful. Good. Okay. Yeah, everybody's saying there is no such thing as normal. Boy, is that true. So Amanda, hi, I'm from South Africa. Hi, Amanda from South Africa. Thanks for being here. I'm studying energy healing and have been developing psychic abilities. I'm finding my intuition to be one of my strengths. I'd love to help people heal spiritually using my intuition through discussing their issues with them. Would this involve coaching or counseling? I'm trying to decide which direction to go in. Can you give me some advice? Well, Amanda, first of all, I think that we're going to find that intuition is, it's already played a very significant role in healing therapies for many, many years. I think we're going to find it'll become more and more mainstream. I have a husband who's incredibly intuitive and works with his intuition. I know that over the years, because of the amount of experience I've amassed, there's a way in which amassing a lot of experience gives us access to intuition. There's a strong link between the two. I use my intuition a lot. There are people who do intuitive counseling that don't have a strict counseling or therapy degree or a coaching certification. I think intuition is one of those sort of fundamental skills that can be used in either direction. So the real question, Amanda, to me would be, do you want to go the therapy route where you're dealing with people's emotional issues? And in which case you'd want to get some kind of formal training, depending on where you are, formal training as a therapist. Or do you want to use your intuition as a coach, helping people to set very clear goals and objectives and measurable results in their lives, and then just sort of use it as you work with people coaching? And sometimes you don't have to even, a lot of times I don't even say, well, my intuition, sometimes I'll say it, but a lot of times I'll just ask a certain question because it came to me, or I will offer a piece of information because it came to me. So it's just kind of a fundamental skill that I use all the time in my speaking, in my workshops, in my you know, the retreats, all of the different work that I do. I'm always using my intuition. As a matter of fact, I would say at this point in my life, it's my first line of, it's the first skill I pull out of the toolbox and start using right off the bat. I trust it that much. So whichever direction feels right to you in terms of the kind of career that you want to develop, you know, using the intuition and amassing a lot of experience. I mean, I think that's what really distinguishes intuition, is when you've got enough experience and confidence in your ability that you can trust yourself when you get a gut instinct about something, and you develop the ability to be accurate. I mean, I think that's also really important. You know, I look at my husband, Michael, who uses his intuition in working with people who are suffering. He is a therapist, and he's remarkably accurate. It's because he's got a ton of years under his belt, and he trusts his intuition and has no attachment to the results, which I find also. I find for me, when I'm doing the tapping gives me direct access to my intuition. I wind up coming up with the right things to say, picking up on the right points. It happens to be one of those modalities that just plugs me right in. And I love it for that reason. And I have a lot of experience. I say that a lot because, you know, whenever we're dealing with counseling and intuition and all of that, I'm just so mindful of doing right by people. You know, making sure that you really are, you're not playing a guru in any sense. You've got a good sense of humility, and you've got a lot of your own healing under your belt as well, so that we don't bring our unhealed stuff to people. That's really important to me. Okay, I think we are coming to the end. We are coming to the end. Yeah. So let me say a few things. First of all, guess what? You know what I forgot to tell you? I got a galley of my book, my next book. Let me see if I can do this. I want to try something. I just got a great tip from somebody. You know how I'm always showing you books that everything's always backwards, right? Well, I just got an awesome tip, and let me see if this works. Let's see if I can hold it back far enough. Oh no. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on, everybody. I'm going to remove the, here we go. Let's see if I can do this. There. Tell me if you can read that. I think it's straight, right? I just got, this is just the galley copy of my next book. I hope that the light's not in the way, but can you see that? Yay, it works. Isn't that awesome? I mean, what's awesome to me, what I'm so excited about, is that I've now learned how to show you stuff without it being backwards. Anyway, it's my new baby. Oh my God, I'm so nervous about it. Anyway, it's going to be out December 19th. It's going to start shipping from Amazon on December 19th. You can pre-order it if you want. It's a picture of me in my backyard. A friend of mine took the photo. It was like one of these afternoon light, practically no makeup, nothing. I just said, let's just take some photos. And the publisher loved it. So that's what they put on the cover. Anyway, so the new book will be out. That'll be in December. The retreat, the Healthcare by the Sea retreat, is starting to fill up. So I'll put a notice on the post about that as well if you want to join me. The next retreat is all about health, emotional, physical, and spiritual health, with a wonderful nurse practitioner, Susan Dowdy, who you're going to love. She's awesome. And we're going to be talking about energy healing and tapping, but also just, you know, physical women's health issues through perimenopause, menopause, and how to go from being a survivor to a thriver if you've had some kind of a life-threatening illness. So many different things. It's going to be a really fun retreat. I'm looking forward to that. And then just make sure, if you just look up on Facebook, you'll see a blue bar that says sign up. And that will connect you to my online newsletter. Yeah, we're going to be talking about hormones too. That will connect you to the ability, allow you to subscribe to my online newsletter, which will let you know when these Facebook Lives are going to happen. You'll be the first to know, along with getting my weekly blog and information about retreats and events and those kinds of things. So
Mm-hmm.
You can sign up there. But in the meantime, I love all of you, and I so appreciate you being here. I hope the information's helpful, and I will look forward to talking to you next week. Okay? All right. Take good care of yourself, everybody. Oh, and let me just tell you, there are 2 little baby bunnies. They're about this big. 2 baby bunnies running around in my backyard, and they're like jumping up in the air together. So let's imagine that they're just waving goodbye. All right. Thank you, everybody.